For years, MASH was remembered as television's rare miracle, a series that balanced humor and heartbreak while projecting a sense of genuine family among its cast. Viewers believed the off-screen relationships mirrored the on-screen camaraderie, imagining laughter between takes and lifelong bonds forming under the California sun. But like many long-running productions, reality was more complicated. Beneath the warmth and witty banter existed exhaustion, creative clashes, and emotional strain. At the center of many quiet tensions stood Gary Burghoff, the actor behind the beloved Radar O'Reilly. To audiences, Radar represented innocence, kindness, and moral grounding. To some castmates, however, Burghoff's intensity and sensitivity became difficult to navigate over time. This contrast between public perception and private reality fueled rumors for decades. The truth was not about hatred, but about pressure, personality, and the unseen cost of maintaining perfection week after week. Finding Radar before television history. Gary Burghoff's connection to Radar O'Reilly began before MASH * became a cultural phenomenon. In 1970, filmmaker Robert Altman cast the young stage actor in the original MASH film, recognizing a natural sincerity that could anchor the story's chaos. Burghoff was relatively unknown then, with experience in theater and music, rather than Hollywood fame. His portrayal of Radar, though limited in screen time, stood out immediately. The character's awkward movements, gentle expressions, and quiet empathy softened the film's sharp satire. When CBS later adapted the movie into a television series, Burghoff was the only actor invited to reprise his role. He hesitated, unsure whether television could preserve the film's depth. Ultimately, his desire to explore Radar more fully convinced him. That decision would define his career and permanently shape television history. Radar becomes the heart of the 4077th. When MASH premiered in 1972, it slowly gained momentum before becoming one of the most influential shows of its era. Set during the Korean War but airing amid the Vietnam conflict, it resonated deeply with audiences seeking honesty beneath humor. Radar quickly emerged as the emotional core of the series. His ability to sense helicopters before anyone else became symbolic, as if he felt pain before it arrived. Fans adored his teddy bear, his stammered "sir," and his quiet compassion. Many of these traits were Burghoff's own creative choices, added instinctively rather than scripted. By the second season, Radar was widely considered the soul of the camp. Yet that affection carried a hidden cost. The more beloved Radar became, the more rigid his image grew, leaving little room for change as the series evolved. Trapped inside permanent innocence. As MASH matured, its characters evolved into layered, emotionally complex figures. Radar, however, was expected to remain unchanged. Producers and audiences wanted his innocence preserved, even as the show's tone grew darker. For Burghoff, this became increasingly suffocating. He was a perfectionist, deeply invested in authenticity, yet trapped in a role that resisted growth. Each note from writers and directors felt personal, each compromise heavier than the last. The audience's love became an invisible cage, reinforcing the fear that he would never be seen beyond Radar. While other actors released tension through humor or sarcasm, Burghoff internalized the show's emotional weight. Long shooting days and intense subject matter blurred the line between actor and character. What once felt meaningful slowly became exhausting, planting the seeds for distance and eventual departure. Creative friction and emotional distance. Over time, Burghoff's working style began to clash with others on set. He questioned dialogue, sought emotional truth, and occasionally requested additional takes. While this dedication came from sincerity, it also slowed production. Some castmates admired his commitment, others grew frustrated under tight schedules. Relationships became strained not through hostility, but through accumulated fatigue. As leadership shifted and Alan Alda took on greater creative control, Burghoff felt increasingly sidelined. Radar's role diminished while the show leaned more heavily into political and philosophical themes. Between scenes, Burghoff withdrew, spending time alone sketching or quietly playing music. What some perceived as aloofness was, in reality, emotional exhaustion. 7 years of intense work had blurred boundaries, and the once joyful role now felt like a burden. The tension was subtle but unmistakable, choosing to say goodbye. By the late 1970s, Burghoff reached a breaking point. Fame no longer felt rewarding, and time away from family weighed heavily on him. He informed producers of his desire to leave after season 7, though they persuaded him to stay briefly for a proper farewell. Writers created Goodbye Radar, a 2-part episode that allowed the character to return home. During filming, Burghoff and the director disagreed on how Radar should exit. Burghoff initially pushed for visible emotion, believing the moment required release. When the footage was reviewed, it felt too heavy, overshadowing the story's larger message. A reshoot stripped the scene of dramatics, allowing Radar to leave quietly as wounded soldiers arrived. That restraint transformed the goodbye into one of the series' most powerful moments. In stepping back, Burghoff delivered Radar's truest farewell: fallout, rumors, and misunderstanding. When Radar's exit aired in 1979, audiences were deeply moved, but speculation followed quickly. Rumors painted Burghoff as difficult or ungrateful, overshadowing the real reasons behind his departure. The truth was far simpler. He was tired. The show consumed most of the year, leaving little space for marriage or parenthood. Burghoff later explained that living up to Radar's purity both on and off screen was emotionally draining. He wanted to be present in his children's lives, not trapped by expectation. While gossip suggested lasting resentment, many cast members expressed understanding over time. Public gestures of respect replaced old narratives, revealing that what looked like conflict was often misinterpreted exhaustion. The so-called feud faded, replaced by acknowledgement of Burghoff's contribution to the show's emotional honesty. Stepping away from the spotlight. After leaving MASH, Burghoff largely stepped away from Hollywood. He took on occasional roles but resisted returning to fame-driven schedules. A short-lived spin-off never gained traction, and he chose a quieter life focused on family, art, and music. Burghoff explored painting, wildlife conservation, and humanitarian efforts, channeling empathy into causes rather than cameras. Fans later rediscovered his kindness through appearances supporting disaster relief and charitable campaigns. He spoke softly, without nostalgia or bitterness, embodying the same sincerity that once defined Radar. His decision to withdraw was not rejection but preservation. By leaving early, he protected the character's innocence and his own well-being. Radar never grew cynical, and neither did the memory audiences carried forward. Time, perspective, and quiet respect. As years passed, the intense emotions surrounding MASH * softened. Several cast members passed away, and reunions became rarer. Reflections replaced rumors. Colleagues acknowledged that the pressure of creating something meaningful for over a decade took its toll on everyone. What once felt personal was recognized as the strain of sustained excellence. Burghoff's sensitivity, once misunderstood, appeared in hindsight as emotional honesty. Fans continued to write letters, thanking him for portraying kindness in a world shaped by conflict. In reruns, Radar's presence still grounds the chaos, reminding viewers of compassion's quiet power. The story evolved from tension to appreciation, from misunderstanding to gratitude. Time revealed that no one truly hated Gary Burghoff. They simply struggled alongside him, the man behind the innocence. Gary Burghoff's story is not about resentment, but about the human limits of creativity. He carried the weight of innocence in a show that explored suffering, absorbing emotional responsibility others did not have to bear. His choice to leave was not selfish, but necessary. In stepping away, he preserved both Radar's legacy and his own sense of self. Today, his portrayal remains timeless because it was rooted in truth rather than performance. Radar O'Reilly endures as a symbol of empathy, not because he was perfect, but because he cared. Burghoff once said fame was never the goal. That honesty defines his legacy. History now remembers not conflict, but contribution, not ego, but vulnerability. In the end, Gary Burghoff was never difficult. He was human, and that is exactly why radar still matters.